I've had this guy for about a year. It's got about 100 hours on it. It's time to do some maintenance. It's a 2018 Mercury, 6 horsepower, 4-stroke, and I'm going to do every maintenance activity in the manual, plus a carb removal, disassembly, and cleaning. It's gonna be fun. Disclaimer, I am not a mechanic. This is not an expert tutorial. This is more of a conversation. If I do anything wrong, leave a comment. If there's a better way, if there's a trick, a hack to do something better, leave a comment. This video is for me to learn, for you guys to learn, and for us to find the best way to take care of a motor like this. This motor is also the same as a Tohatsu, so all of these activities are exactly the same for a Tohatsu motor, and these maintenance items are the same for the 4, 5, and 6 horsepower Mercury and Tohatsus. Let's hit the garage and do some maintenance. Basic oil change, do it every 100 hours. Do it once a season if you don't hit 100 hours. Marine grade 4-cycle 10W30 oil. 4, 5, and 6 horsepower all take 15 ounces. So I've got a really basic measuring can here. Here, yellow cap is the oil fill cap. So I'm gonna go ahead, take that guy off. On the pull start side, on the bottom of the motor relative to the handle, you can see drain plug there. We're gonna pull that drain plug off, let it drain out. The drain plug is a 10mm hex head, so grab yourself a 10mm socket. I'm gonna take it off. We're gonna crack it and drain the used spent oil into a bucket. And one thing I like to do is the first bit that comes out, I like to sample, because that's where you're gonna have a lot of sediment, just to see if there's any metal shavings or any contamination in there that's settled down to the bottom. So we'll give this a little crack, get the bucket under there. Once it's loose, enough to loosen it, there it goes. Don't lose the drain plug. It looks pretty good. No metal shavings. All right, it looks like it's about done draining. Got a couple of drips. Once I take a sample, look for metal shavings. I also like to give it a little smell just to make sure there's no gas. I'm also looking for any water standing on top, any discoloration. I always like to put a little bit of the fresh oil in. Now we've pushed some of that old oil out. Now it's time to put the drain plug back in. Put a little bit on my finger. I'm gonna make sure the drain plug is lubricated and has a good seal with that oil. It's thumb tightened down. Now we'll tighten it the rest of the way. You don't want to give it too much force or you'll strip it. It's definitely not something you want to do. So I don't know how many Newton meters it recommends, but give it a snug it in. Now it's time to fill it back up with oil. Snug it down. And let's check the fill level. I don't know if you can see it. It's kind of clear, but it's dead on. That is it. Spark plug replacement. Here's spark plug, here's plug cable. It is on the tiller side of the motor opposite of the gas can. First thing we're going to do, pop that plug cable off. There she is, this is a spark plug. Take a spark plug socket or a 5/8 wrench. She is. Looks pretty good. Here's the new one. This is a E36. I'll post a picture of all of the compatible spark plugs. Now I'm just going to thread it right back in. All right, once you get it thumb tight, kind of jiggle it a little bit. Get any slop out of it so you cannot tighten it anymore. And then this guy is supposed to be tightened down to 20 foot-pounds of torque. I don't have a torque wrench. My fingers are my torque wrench. Let's see where we're at right here. We're about 18 foot-pounds. All right, 20 foot-pounds. I'm just kidding. I have no idea how many foot-pounds that is, but what you can do is it says to thumb tighten or finger tighten down, give it an extra quarter turn once your finger tightened down, and then that should be pretty close to 20 foot-pounds. Plug cable back on. That is it. All right, now let's change the water impeller. It's good to change this every year. Cheap insurance. They'll probably last a good 2 to 3 years, but quickest way to blow out your motor is to run it without cooling water cycling through the engine. I always change out the impeller once a year. Impeller is located right above the lower end unit, right in here. Water comes in, water inlet, which is here, floods the water impeller. The water impeller is attached to the drive shaft. It's pushing water, circulating water up through the water pipe here into your engine. It's circulating through the engine, and then it is coming out your telltale here. First step is you got to remove this cover here. This cover is over a port where your shift linkage is attached to your lower end unit. So you take that rubber cover off, this guy. It's going to give you access to your shift linkage, and then what you're going to want to do is put it in reverse, and then you can see that hex head here. And what that hex head's doing is it's connecting shift linkage to your lower end unit, and this guy's got to come off because we're going to pull the lower end unit off in order to get to the impeller. 10mm socket. Just want to loosen it. You don't want to take it all the way out or it'll fall out. So that guy's loose now. And you don't want to change gears once you get that loose or you're going to be out of position. We can take the lower end unit off. There are 2 bolts under there. That one, and then one on the back. That one. That's holding the lower end unit off. So we're going to take those guys off now. 13mm socket. 10mm for the back. There you got it. Lower end unit is out. Here's the drive shaft. Here is the impeller housing. Here is your shift linkage. That's what was attached that we loosened. And then once again, here's your drive shaft. Pretty cool. Here is inlet for the water here. Here's the tube that goes from the inlet to the impeller housing or your pump housing there. There's a tube that sits right down in there. I'll show you here in a second. And the water gets pushed up that into your motor. There's the tube right there that sits down in the water pump. We got to take these 4 bolts off to get to the impeller. 10mm socket. Tube comes out of this seat. This whole housing pops off, and then it'll slide up the drive shaft. Key thing, whenever you get this off, always note which way it's turning. If you can see, see how it looks from this point? It's turning clockwise. You can see the vanes are bent in the counterclockwise position. You gotta put the new impeller in that same exact way. New impeller. All right, let's stop here. Full disclosure, this guy almost made me have a really bad day. This little thing here is a key that fits in the impeller. There's a little slot right there at the top where that key sits in and basically locks it to the drive shaft. The drive shaft is what spins this. Without this key, the drive shaft's gonna spin. This is not gonna spin and push any water. So this guy fell out after I was done in reinstalling the new impeller in the outboard. So I'm gonna have to tear it back down and make sure that this guy's in the proper place. Make sure when you're doing this, you do not lose this little key. My new impeller did not come with one. I'm just lucky that I found it when I saw it on the floor. This could have ruined this outboard if I took it out in the water. But without this key, eventually the impeller would have wore out in the center, lost friction with the drive shaft, and stopped pumping water. So this could have ruined this outboard. Here is the new impeller on the drive shaft. There is a flat, you can see it right there. There's a flat machined surface at the bottom of the drive shaft that engages with the key that goes inside the impeller slot. There's a keyway in the impeller. Key goes in there and engages with that flat surface. The trick to get that key in is to put a little bit of grease at the bottom of the drive shaft so the key sticks to that flat surface, and then slide the impeller down on the key. That is the easiest way that I've found to do it, and I found this off of a YouTube channel, and I'll link his channel in the show notes below. So I'm going to put a little bit, just a little tiny bit of grease down at the very bottom to hold the key in place. That is locked in. It's a little bit tricky, but once you get it, give it a couple of tries. Now it's locked in. There's a little bit of play. There's a little bit of play in it, but that's all right. It's meant to do that. As long as you can't spin that all the way around, you're okay. So the next step is to put the housing down over the impeller. It's a little bit hard because this impeller is oversized compared to the diameter of the housing. So a trick is to put some dishwashing detergent on it, give it some lubrication. Some people use some people use marine grade grease that is meant for rubber and plastic. That's always a good idea. Make sure there's no crud on there, make sure the seal is clean. Then the housing slides on the drive shaft. Once again, the water inlet is going to seat in that hole right there. Remember, the direction of the vanes of the impeller, it's got to go the same way. So when looking at the drive shaft from the motor side, it rotates clockwise. So you're going to rotate it clockwise while pushing down on the housing, to get it to seat down. Make sure this water inlet seats down in the hole here, just like that. That's seated down good. All right, so we're good. We got the motor housing back on. Impeller is going in the right direction. The key's in there. Remember, the drive shaft rotates counterclockwise when looking at it from the motor, from the top or the motor side. Everything looks like it's good. Water intake is seated in there. Now it's time to tighten it back down. While we get this guy off, I'm going to pull the prop, inspect the spline gear on the prop. While we have this guy off the lower end unit, I'm going to go ahead and inspect the upper spline on the drive shaft. Everything looks good. Put some anti-seize on it. All right, while we have this guy off also, I'm going to take the prop off, straighten that cotter pin out. There. Got it. Now 17 millimeter socket. Comes right off. You got a nut. Don't lose it. Under the nut there is a washer. Then comes all the way off. Don't forget which side goes which. Spline side goes towards the lower end unit. Thing looks pretty good. No stripped. I don't know if you can see in there. Probably not. There's some wear going on. Definitely work some of those gears down a little bit. Inspect this portion here. This looks really good. Anti-seize. Put some anti-seize on this spline gear here. Prop. It's beat up pretty bad. Some pretty good nicks. I'm actually going to take a file, clean this up from the back side. Start with the coarse side of the file. Get a lot of those burrs out. You want a pretty sharp edge. Any kind of burrs, nicks, and cut through the water as well. And you can get some cavitation. Give you a disclaimer, I don't know if this is good for the prop or not, so do your research. But I have seen people do it, and it makes sense to me. It actually looks a lot better. All right, let's get this guy back on. All right, spline side towards the lower end unit, washer, nuts. So here's the tricky part, getting this to line up. All right. tighten this down. Now, the fun part is finding, see, that's what the hole is covered up where the cotter pin's supposed to go, so I tightened it too much. Too much. This is what I don't understand. Am I supposed to tighten it all the way? Because if I do, I miss the hole. There's not enough room to get in there. There. Finally got it. Finally got it in there. Now just bend this guy back up. All right, should be all there is to it. Now I'm going to reinstall the lower end unit back to the motor. What the heck? That's what it looks like underneath. This side right here is the coupling for your shift lever. That hole in the middle is where the drive shaft's going to go. That pipe right there is what's going to seat on your water pump right there. Those have to mate up. That has to mate with the water pipe. This has to go up through that center hole. This has to go through the coupling to attach back to the shift lever. Now we're just putting the two bolts that attach the lower end unit. Now the only thing left to do is tighten up the coupling that attaches the shift lever to the lower end unit. It's again 10 millimeter. Let's get it snug. Now when I shift, you should see that move. There it goes. All right, we got the lower end unit back on. It is a bit tricky getting the drive shaft to go up there. There's like a pipe up at the top the drive shaft's got to go through. The shift linkage that goes down into the lower end unit has to go through that coupling, and then also it has to go through this hole here right there. So you've got to hit the coupling. There's a hole in the coupling, you got to hit that, you got to go through that hole, and the drive shaft's got to go through that tube up in the middle that guides it into the motor. And then also there is a water pipe that's got a seat into your water pump housing. So once you get all that lined up, bolted in, should be good to go. Make sure you do not change gears. After you detach the lower end and take that coupling off, make sure you don't change gears, because you're going to be out of position and it's going to cause you some problems. You're in forward. If you change gears, your forward position here on your lever is going to be neutral potentially if you change gears, either by pushing the linkage rod into the lower end unit, that changes gears for your lower end unit, or accidentally pushing your shift lever here is going to get you out of position. Got it back together, we'll move on to the next one. Is the fuel filter to clamp fittings, super easy. Make sure your gas is drained, run it dry, remove those clamp fittings, take the filter off, put a new one on. Once you get them out, you can pull the fuel filter rod off. Sometimes you gotta break it loose a little bit like that. Bam, just like that. All right, put the new one on. Look at the flow, look for the flow marker. Flow towards carburetor, away from the gas tank. Put your lines back on. Move your clamp fittings back down. That is it. Now, carb removal, tear down, and cleaning. This has me a little bit scared, and it just looks complicated. Afraid I'm gonna mess something up, but I've been having some issues with cold starting, so I think taking that carb apart and cleaning it is gonna help me out a tremendous amount. So let's jump into it and figure this out. Here's the carb. I'm thinking these two bolts are what is primarily holding this carb on. So what I'm going to do is pull this line, the gas line. There's a compression fitting here. I'm going to take that compression fitting off, and then I'm going to take these bolts out. This should slide off when I remove the throttle linkage. Here's the throttle linkage where it attaches. Pull that bolt off. That bolt off, take airline off, take the airline off here, then this should come right off. Let's start tearing it down and see. It's going to be an adventure, but it's okay. First thing, gas line. Alright, gas line is off. Here's a vacuum tube or something right there. That's overflow flood. Okay, so when it floods, I think this directs the gas out versus into the motor. So honestly, that can stay on right now because this is not really attached to anything. It's just sticking out the bottom of the motor. How does that come off? I think it pops right out. Oh man. All right, there's the throttle linkage. It was attached to right in that slot, right there. As you can see, that moves with the throttle. So the best thing I found, give it about half throttle, it'll make it perpendicular and you can push it right through. All right, so we've got the airline, fuel line, airline off. We've got the throttle linkage off. We've got this vacuum, or this tube here that I think's for flood overflow. Now, I'm just gonna get these bolts off. 2 bolts, that's all I see. One, 2, be careful, there are bushings in there that come out. This is the little breather box where the airline attaches. Here's the choke. There's choke, throttle. There's the, that's what I was missing. It take it, leave this in there until you get the carb off, and then you can just turn it and it comes right out. These tubes. Oh my goodness. Got it. Watch that. Little gasket there. All right. So here's the carb. Choke, throttle. See the throttle valve in there. Bowl drain. There's a screw under that cap for your fuel air mixture. I think that is the idle jet is in there. That's what I'm really interested in, is that guy, because I'm having a hard time cold starting. Let's get these screws out, get the bowl off, and we'll get some carb cleaner in here. Here's the main jet. With these jets, because they're brass and they will strip out if you don't have the right size Phillips head. There we go. Just the plug. All right, let's get this other one off. Here's the idle jet. All right, so now I'm going to soak this guy in some carb cleaner. Just let it soak and then spray it again. Let that sit in that bowl, those two jets. I'm going to take this outside and just spray everything down as best I can. Be back. Right. And spraying it, make sure you get in that idle jet port right there. It'll blow back up through the main jet and through the throttle chamber. So everything's sprayed down really good. I'm going to let it sit overnight and then come back tomorrow, put it back together and see how she runs. The jets, they soaked overnight. I sprayed out the carb again, cleaned out the bowl again with carb cleaner. Ready to put this guy back on, so wish me luck. All right, first, I'm gonna put the jets back on. The longer one's the idle jet. Goes in that port right there. You just want to snug these down. They're brass, so they will strip out easy on you. You're gonna get it snug in there. Now, your main jet. Inside the bowl. Just snug it down in that main port. Now it's time for the bowl. Watch the gasket. Sometimes it'll come out on you. Make sure there's no dirt or contamination around that gasket. If you get a rebuild kit, you get a new gasket with it. It's always a good idea. Spend a little extra money, get a rebuild kit. All right, you also want to be careful. There's another gasket on the outlet side of the carb. This plastic gasket here, this plastic spacer / gasket goes there. We've got 3 gaskets on the outlet side that you gotta be careful. You got a gasket on the outlet of the carb, and then you got a gasket on the motor side, and then that plastic spacer. So don't lose any 3 of those. Got this little breather box. Remember, this little breather box goes on the inlet side of the carb. These two bolts go through here. You got brass bushings that are loose in that little box. Those will fall out and you will lose those, so be careful there. Get the bolts in through there. Get the bolts through your carb. So now the carb is ready to fit back in place. First, I'm going to attach the choke linkage because it's easier to go in, bend down, done. Choke linkage. Now I can put the plastic spacer on, and then now line up the holes and I can screw it in. Drain / vacuum tubes, whatever they are. Make sure they get routed back down. Out the bottom. They literally come out the bottom of the motor. Now gas line. Hook the gas line back into the inlet of the carb. Air line, secure the air intake line, check the choke. That looks really good. Throttle linkage, almost forgot about that guy. Give it half throttle, that'll position everything. We'll go into the carb side first. Oh, I forgot which way this goes. I should have took a picture. Got it on video. I don't want to go back and try to find it in the video. I'm gonna figure it out. All right, so it looks like this side is gonna go in the carb. Got it. Woo! All right, so there. This is what it looks like with that linkage on. I was having a problem getting it seated there. You definitely want to put it in the carb side first. That throttle valve there. And then you can kind of semi-force it in that channel that's controlled by your tiller handle. I think you can take that hex head off, make it a little bit easier, but I was able to get it to fit in that channel. So we got the gas line hooked back up. We got the air intake line hooked back up. We got the, I think, flood overflow in. That's hooked up, routed out the bottom. It's another vacuum tube, I believe, or flood overflow on the back side that's routed through the bottom. Throttle linkage is back on. Really important, the choke linkage is back on. Put that on before you bolt it down. It makes it super easy for that one. Double check that everything is moving. There's choke. Throttle. Choke is supposed to, choke engages with the throttle valve. That's good. Throttle all the way open. That's good. I think everything is good. All right, I sure hope that she starts after taking the carb off. I did notice one issue. The bowl of the carb can go two different ways. And it can bolt up two different ways and the screw holes still line up. I think I put it on backwards. So hopefully it doesn't cause a problem. It looks like that gasket is symmetrical, so it doesn't matter. The only issue is the drain plug on the carb now is facing inward towards the motor where I can't get to it. So I'm going to try to start it once I get everything put back together, and hopefully it doesn't cause any problems. Hopefully it doesn't leak. I'll keep an eye out for that. But next time I clean it out, I'll remember to move that back over. So we'll get it all back together and see if she'll start. I'm going to change the lower end unit gear oil. Do that every 100 hours. Do this once a season, definitely before you store it for the winter. Sometimes if you have a bad seal, water will get in your oil, the lower end unit, and when it freezes over the winter, it'll crack, and definitely not a good thing to crack your lower end unit. Here is the oil level port. Here is the fill and drain port here. It's important that you fill from this lower port because that helps push all the air up out of here when you're filling it with oil. There's a lot of pockets around the gears, and by pushing the oil from the bottom up, it pushes all that air out. If you have the bottom plug in and you fill from the top, sometimes it'll keep those air pockets in place. So always good to fill from the bottom. That's what it's there for. That's what it's meant to do. First step is to break loose the oil port, and then we'll break loose the bottom drain and fill port. We want to keep this guy in because when we pull this out, that will prevent it from venting, and that will hold the oil in until we get that plug out all the way and we can get a bucket under there. I'm going to take the lower plug out. So you can see it's holding it pretty well. Now I'll take this out and the oil will start flowing. Alright, we got oil flowing now. Alright, that is all drained out. Sample the oil, make sure there's no metal shavings. Make sure there's no water. That is beautiful. We're going to put the gear oil into the lower port, and then we're going to squeeze until we see it coming out of the upper, and then we'll put the plug in to create a kind of a suction, prevent it from venting and draining out. All right, keep filling. All right, it's coming out. See those air bubbles? I'm gonna get those air bubbles out. Put this guy back on. Isn't too much. Tighten this down. I'm gonna get pretty snug. The one thing you don't want to do though is you don't want this to suck back out, because if this sucks back out, you're gonna suck oil back down. And then what I do at the end, I just kind of top it off a little bit. Once you got the plugs back in, give it a wipe. Look for any leaks. Key points for replacing the lower end unit oil. You want to do it before winter, just in case you have water. You want to fill from the bottom, always, to make sure you push all the air pockets up. If you're using a tube like I am, once you get oil out of that level port there, make sure you don't let go of that tube or it's going to suck the oil down. You're going to think there's oil in there, but it's going to end up back in the tube of gear oil. When you're done filling from the bottom, you either got to be quick and put the bottom one back in, or you put the top one in. That'll prevent it from venting, and that'll buy you a little bit more time to put the bottom one in without all the oil rushing out. Overall, pretty simple. I would recommend investing in a pump. That way you can pump, see it coming out, keep pressure on there. You've got a pump, it'll stay down in position, keep pressure. There won't be any suction that you got to worry about. So overall, pretty simple. Now we just put some grease on some fittings and call it a day. So bracket swivel fittings here and here. I'm going to put some on the transom clamp screws, just literally right on the screws. Put a little grease on the shift detent. Now put a little grease on the shift pivot points. All right, guys, we finally finished all those maintenance activities. I'm a bit nervous. I'm hoping that she will start. I've never tore down a car before and cleaned it. Never had a lower end unit off like that before, so hopefully she will turn over. Got some fresh gas in there. Get the choke out. Let's give it a shot. I'm nervous. All right, problem. The prop's turning. When I pull the pull cord, that means I'm out of position with the shift linkage. All right, I gotta figure this out. What? All right, I'm gonna take this guy off and then adjust that coupling to be in a position where neutral is neutral. Because right now when I put it in neutral on the motor side, the lower end is wanting to be in forward. All right, figured out what it was. I kept saying, don't change gears when you got your linkage decoupled. Something happened and I changed gears, and when the lower end unit was in neutral, the upper end was in reverse. So I had to, you can manually push and pull this up and down, that right there, to change the gears of the lower end unit. So undo this coupling, you can push and pull this here to change the gears to get them to match up again. So should work, but the problem is when I was pulling the pull cord when it was in forward, I cracked my bucket. So now I gotta find a new bucket before we can try this guy out. All right, be back in a minute. Tape, the best. Hopefully it'll hold just enough for me to try this guy out again. All right, and we're back. Got the whole shift issue figured out. Now we're gonna give it a start.
I know.
Hey! Maybe I just need to get some gas through that carb. Maybe just needed to get some gas through that carb, maybe. I don't know. All I know is all the fuel lines were empty when I drained it. So I'm gonna try it again this time to see if it'll start. First pull. Nope. Try one more time.
Got it.
Hey, buddy.
Are you still making a video?
Yeah. Hey! It's idling pretty good. It's idling a little bit better than it was, it seems like. Well, that's it. She's running. First pull after I got it started. Pretty pleased. We'll see now. Cold start, now that the carb's full of gas. Next time I cold start it, see how many pulls it takes. But overall, she's running. All right, we've got it out for the first time since the maintenance activities, and she's running great. I was worried with the whole issues I had when I tried to start it in the bucket, but man, she's doing great. Honestly, I think one of the biggest things is the prop edge filing, because performance has increased, and honestly, the spark plug and that prop edge filing are the two things that I think probably have the biggest impact on performance. But I was getting some cavitation issues at full RPM, but now I haven't had one issue at all day. So I'm planing out really well. Everything is going pretty good. Started on the third pole, starts on the first pole now that she's warmed up every single time. So pretty pleased. About 16 right now, 16 miles an hour. Appreciate the view. As always, have an amazing day on the water.